Hello guys. So, in the last lecture we talked about the instantaneous axis of rotation and its application to Euler angles. Okay. So, given Euler angles, how to compute the instantaneous axis of rotation and instantaneous angular velocity is what we covered in the last class. In today's class I am going to talk about the moment of inertia tensor and its principal axis and what is called as a principal momentum. Okay. So, let me begin by looking at the angular momentum. Consider a rigid body which has n particles and these. So, we will think of it as a discrete body at this moment, and it has these particles which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on, and each one of them is located by the position vector r1, r2 and so on. Okay. Fine. And remember, this is a rigid body. So, the distance between r1 and r2, r1 and r3 and so on, it remains always constant. Okay. Now, let me calculate the angular momentum. So, if I want to calculate the net angular momentum of the rigid body, then what I would do is I will calculate the angular momentum for each particle and then take a sum over all the particles. So, here the index I basically is the index of the particle, and then you have a sum which goes from 1 to n, and the angular momentum of individual particle is basically mass into the position vector cross product with the velocity vector. But then because this is a rigid body and its motion has this peculiarity, we know that the velocity of each point at every instant is basically or can basically be written as some omega cross r I, where this omega is instantaneous angular velocity. Okay. So, once we know this, then we can use the standard back-cab rule. So, I take a dot product of r I with itself, that gives me r I square multiplied by vector omega, and for the second part it is r I dot product with omega multiplied by r I vector there. Okay. So, this is how you would calculate the angular momentum once we know the angular velocity. Now, let me simplify this a little more. So, look at only one component of this. If I want to look at just one component, because L is a vector, if I look at one component of it, let me say I am looking at Lj, that is basically jth component. Here of course, I am going to use the standard numerical notation instead of x, y and z, that is Lj basically is written as L1, L2, L3. What it means is we are talking about Lx, Ly and Lz. So, jth component of L will be given by, so I am going to also write this r I vector. Remember, there are too many indices here now. So, I stands for the particle index, and then r I vector has 3 components, that is xi1, xi2 and xi3. So, again I index stands for the particle, and this 1, 2, 3 are basically x component, y component and the z component. So, now look at what happens here. So, there is the mi r I square, it is the length of the vector r I. So, it does not have components, it is just a number. Then omega is a vector, so I will take the jth component of omega. Then here this r I is a vector. So, you want jth component of r I vector, that is basically xij coming from this vector notation that we are using. And what goes inside this is a dot product of omega vector and r I vector, but that you can write it as summation over k omega k, that is kth component multiplied by xik, kth component of r I. Okay. And remember, this summation over k goes from 1 to 3, summation over I goes from 1 to n, and what are the possible values for j? It is 1, 2, 3. Now, let us rewrite this a little differently. If I rewrite this slightly differently, I am going to take this summation over k first of all outside here. Okay, so you are interchanging summation over I and summation over k. But when I take this k out, all that I want is basically only one component of omega j. So, that is why I have added the delta j k there, okay, multiplied by r I square, and now all the omegas have gone out. Okay. So, you write this omega j as summation over k delta j k. Remember, delta j k is a Dirac delta function. So, that is 0 if j is not equal to k, and it is equal to 1 if j is equal to k. So, you write this omega j as summation over k delta j k omega k. Okay. So, whenever k becomes equal to j, then you would get a non-zero contribution, which is basically omega j. So, once I do that, now there is a omega k which is common in all terms, which we will push outside. Okay. And what remains inside here is basically this summation over I, summation over particle indices, and there are two free indices j and k. So, I will write this quantity inside the bracket is now dependent on only the position vectors of the particle, which means it is a property of the rigid body and not of the omega. Omega now is outside this square bracket. So, everything that has gone inside is basically the property of the rigid body. So, that way we have been able to write L as some property of the rigid body multiplied by the angular speed. Okay. And this is typically denoted as I j k, and this is what we will call as moment of inertia there. Okay. So, the quantity in the bracket is called as moment of inertia. Now, this is so I will write it here again, I j k, which is m I r I square delta j k minus x I j x I k, and again remember this summation is over the particles, whereas j and k are basically the indices standing for the coordinate axis 1, 2, 3 for x, y, z. Now, you see basically j runs over 3 indices, k runs over 3 indices. This looks like 3 by 3 matrix. So, I will put this in the matrix form by putting it like this. So, first of all delta j k, so this is now 3 by 3 matrix. Delta j k basically means only the diagonal entries are 1, that is essentially the identity matrix. So, I will write it as I 3, that is basically 3 by 3 identity matrix. So, it is m I r I square into m I. Now, this r I is a column vector and this r I transpose is a row vector. Okay. This is not a usual row vector into column vector which gives you a number. This is opposite of that. This is column vector into a row vector. This actually will result into 3 by 3 matrix whose components basically would be x j x k. Okay. Fine. So, this is how you would write this, and quite commonly it is in the literature written as I 1 1, I 1 2 and so on, where each of these components here component wise it is defined here, the whole matrix is defined in the matrix form, and it is called tensor for a reason which is not covered in our present syllabus, but basically it has a property just like vector, that when you transform the coordinate system, the components of the vector change in a certain way. Now, vector has 3 components, but this entity here which we called as moment of inertia, it has 9 components, basically it has 9 numbers there. Okay. These 9 numbers they transform in a certain way, and that is why it is called as a tensor. Okay. But that apart, basically we will in this week we will treat this essentially as a matrix. Okay. So, now go back to the previous one. Now, whole of this L vector written as a column matrix with L 1, L 2, L 3 can now simply be written as I omega, where of course, what goes between I and omega, that is a standard matrix multiplication. I is a 3 by 3 matrix and omega is a column vector. Okay. So, now from given omega I can calculate L as long as I know the moment of inertia. So, this neatly separates the inertia of the body in some sense into velocity. It's just like linear momentum, where linear momentum is mass into velocity. Velocity basically is changing parameter, mass is the intrinsic property of the body. In the same way, this is an intrinsic property of the body, okay. But its calculation, its components, they are not scalar like mass, but this is a this behaves like a tensor, or this has 9 components, which if you change coordinate system will change, but if they change, then of course, there is a certain rule according to which these numbers would change. Okay. So, if you have, for example, so we started by looking at rigid body as collection of discrete particles, but typically when you look at a rigid body, we are talking about continuous bodies, or at least the density which is so high, the particles are so close that we can treat it as a continuous body. If you have continuous bodies, then how would I write this formula? This formula would become, so for this mass I would take a tiny volume of the rigid body, and what is the mass in that tiny region? So, that would be density into the volume. So, we take a elemental volume dV and then multiply it by rho, that gives me the mass of the small volume, and then rest of it is simple. Now, of course, I will drop that particle index, this would become r square, then there is a delta j k, we take it from this equation. So, r I square will remain r square, then there is a delta j k, and I will again drop the particle index here and write this as simply x j x k, and then there is a integral over dV. Okay. So, this is the formula that you would use for calculating moment of inertia of a continuous rigid body. Let me start by taking one example. So, in this example, let me start by looking at a cube of side L. So, here is a cube, and the coordinate system here is such that the origin is at the center of the cube, and the 3 axes are parallel to the edges of the cube. Okay. Let us calculate this. This we have done in our 12th standard. So, I will calculate this very quickly. I x x. Now, remember, I need to calculate the moment of inertia tensor. In 12th standard, we simply took one axis and calculated moment of inertia about an axis, which I will define little later, but right now I have to calculate all 9 entities of that matrix, and I have written I x x here, and it is common to denote I 1 as I x x, I 1 as I x y, and so on. These notations are interchangeably used in textbooks. So, we will do the same thing here. So, I x x, which is equivalent to I 1 would be density. We are talking about uniform cube. So, rho is constant. Okay. So, if rho is constant, it will come out of the integration sign, and then there is a integral of y square plus z square. How did I get y square plus z square? Remember, for I 1 it is r square minus x j x k. So, it is r square minus x square, which is basically y square plus z square. Okay. Fine. So, all the integrations are from minus L by 2 to L by 2, because the origin is at the center of the cube, and you do this integrals. If you do this integral, z integral will give you L. The so here dx interval will give you L, and dy and dz integrals together will give you L square L to the power 4 by 6, and then you use the fact that your density is nothing but total mass divided by L cube, that gives you the formula 1 over 6 ml square. Okay, and this is only the first number in that matrix, but if you look at the diagram from symmetry, it is immediately clear. What must be Iyy and Izz? That must be 1 over 6 ml square each, okay, same as Ixx. What about off diagonal entries in that matrix? So, if I calculate Ixy and Ixy would be integral from minus L by 2 to L by 2 for all of minus L by 2 to plus L by 2, but now remember there was a delta Jk. So, when I am calculating I12, delta 12 is 0. So, there will not be any first term. The second term is minus xy times mass, and then you integrate this. Okay. So, if you integrate this, you can immediately see that if I do z integral immediately will give you 0, because the x integral x dx, basically that is a odd integral, that will immediately give you a 0. So, this quantity will be 0, and similarly the remaining two Iyz and xy, yz and zx, all three numbers here of diagonal numbers, they all will be 0. Okay. So, this looks like 1 over 6 ml square into an identity matrix. All the entries are on the body diagonal, on the diagonal of the matrix there. Okay. So, this is how you calculate the moment of inertia tensor for the cube. But wait, now this moment of inertia depends, does it depend on coordinate system? It does in some way, but it also depends on the origin. So, the second example, what I will do is I will take the example, the same cube whose dimensions are L or edge length is L, but now it is placed in such a way that its edges are parallel to the coordinate axis, but the origin is at one corner. Okay. Now, let us calculate the moment of inertia tensor. So, Ixx, of course, this is a straightforward integral. Only thing that you have to remember is what are the limits of integration here. Limits of integration are from 0 to L there. Okay. So, integration here there will be 3 integrals, and each integral will go from 0 to L, one for dx, one for dy and one for dz. And if you do this calculation, it comes to 2 by 3 ml square. What about the off diagonal element? Off diagonal element will be Ixy, again the same integral with minus sign xy dx dy dz. Only difference between the last example and this example are the integration limits, because the cube is shifted. So, if I substitute all those limits and integrate, I get minus 1 by 4 ml square. Okay. So, the off diagonal entries now are not 0, and if I put this in matrix form, then I get I, which is 1 by 12 ml square, and inside the matrix I have entries 8 minus 3 minus 3 minus 3 8 3 and so on. So, now you see this moment of inertia tensor looks very different from the one which we had in the previous example. By changing the origin, origin matters. If you change the origin, moment of inertia changes. Okay. Remember, we always calculate moment of inertia about a point, but what does not matter, and which is not immediately obvious, but what does not matter is basically if you rotate the coordinate system, the moment of inertia as a object, as intrinsic property would remain same, except that these numbers would change in certain way, but otherwise it is the same moment of inertia tensor. All right. Now, if I want to calculate the angular momentum, suppose I set it spinning about some axis and I want to calculate the angular momentum. Okay. So, if I calculate this by using omega, which is along z axis. So, basically all that I am doing is you take a z axis and the cube is rotating about the z axis. So, it is basically rotating about this vertical edge of the cube. Okay. This is not same as the previous case where rotation about z axis basically, because z axis passes through the origin of the cube, rotates about its center. Now, if I take omega as omega into z cap, that basically means z cap is nothing but 0 0 1 here. So, I have moment of inertia tensor multiplied by the angular speed. Moment of inertia tensor is here as a 3 by 3 matrix into 1 by 12 ml square and omega times 0 0 1, this is the z cap. If you take the product of this, you get the answer which is -3 and 8. Now, look at this one. This vector, which is angular momentum vector, is no more parallel to omega vector. Remember, your omega vector was vertical there. Where is this L vector? L vector has a positive z component and negative z components for y and z. So, basically the L vector goes like this, where it has a positive component, but the x component, y component are on the negative side. Okay. So, it is away from the body like that, it goes like this into the third quadrant. Okay. So, basically what will happen is that angular momentum normally will not be parallel to omega vector, okay, for rigid bodies. And here is one more example. If I for example take omega, which is 1 over root 3 x cap plus y cap plus z cap. What is this direction? This is basically a 1 over root 3 1 1 1 it is. What is that direction? That is exactly same as the body diagonal of our cube, that joins 0 0 0 point here to L L L point there, which is at diagonally opposite to 0 0 0. And if you take a unit vector along that, you will get 1 over root 3 1 1 1 multiplied by some speed, angular speed omega, that gives me the angular velocity. Now, what would be the angular momentum? Same procedure, calculate this. L will be equal to I omega, then you have 1 over 12 ml square and this I vector, I tensor, and omega into 1 1 1, and then there is 1 over square root 3. Multiply this, and surprisingly it will be 1 over 6 square root 3 ml square omega, but look at the vector, it is 1 1 1, which is parallel to omega. It is exactly same as x cap plus y cap plus z cap. It has a different magnitude, but it is parallel to omega. So, if I choose a axis which is along the body diagonal, then the L vector will remain parallel to omega vector. Okay. It turns out, I will give you this result beforehand, but we will calculate this later. If you take any vector perpendicular to this 1 1 1 vector, so 1 1 1 vector has a perpendicular plane passing through origin. So, if you take any other vector and treat it as omega, you will find that L is parallel to omega. Okay. Now, question is when that happens and when it does not happen. Here we saw two situations where it happens to be parallel in one case, but not parallel in the other case. Okay. Now, I will define something called as a principal axis. Now, if you look at this inertia tensor, you look at I x y and I y x, or I 1 2 and I 2 1, they are same, they are equal. This tensor is always symmetric and has real entities in it, real numbers in it. So, if it is a real symmetric matrix, we know that it is diagonalizable, and if it is diagonalizable, it also has real eigenvalues, and those real eigenvalues are called as principal momenta, and the corresponding eigenvector are called as principal axis. And for real symmetric matrix, I know one more result, that the 3 eigenvectors, I can always choose 3 eigenvectors which are mutually perpendicular, and those 3 eigenvectors are called as principal axis, or any eigenvector of the tensor is called as principal axis, but I can always find 3 mutually orthogonal eigenvectors there. Okay. Let me start by looking at one example. Go back to this cube example. Now, we already have this moment of inertia tensor or matrix. I want to find the eigenvalues and eigenvectors of this. How do we do that? Basically, I first find out the, so if lambda is eigenvalue, then it must satisfy this relationship. Characteristic polynomial of this matrix would be determinant I minus lambda I 3 must be equal to 0. This is a cubic polynomial, because so when I am looking at this, it really does not matter whether I worry about this extra multiplicative factor or not. I will first find the eigenvalues of this matrix and then multiply it by 1 over 12 ml square to get the actual eigenvalues of moment of inertia tensor. So, I want determinant of moment of inertia matrix minus lambda times I 3. So, determinant of 8 minus lambda, that is basically coming from the identity matrix there. This one is a cubic polynomial, it has 3 solutions. So, the cubic polynomial is here, you can expand this, or you can use whatever trick that you know to find the solutions of this roots of this polynomial, and they turn out to be 2, 11 and 11. Okay. So, 11 repeats. Now, the principal momenta now we can immediately calculate. Basically, it is lambda multiplied by these 3 numbers. So, it is ml square by 6, and 2 other principal momenta would be 11 by 12 ml square. Let us find out the eigenvectors. If I want to find eigenvectors, then all I have to do is I now have the eigenvalues there. To get eigenvector, I need to solve this equation. So, if ABC is eigenvector corresponding to a given eigenvalue, then I must solve this equation here, okay, and get the ABC, and you can do that very easily. Remember, because this is singular, I minus lambda is singular at this point. So, you can get of course infinitely many solutions. Choose one vector, the unit vector in that direction. So, if you choose 3 mutually orthogonal solutions, they are here 1 1 minus 2, 1 minus 1 0, and here is 1 1 1. Okay. Now, we see y L was parallel to omega when omega was along 1 1 1, because 1 1 1 is actually one of the principal axis of the body. Okay. So, if I look at these 3 vectors, where do they point? 1 1 1 vector is of course obvious, this is this vector passing through body diagonal. The other 2 vectors, incidentally, because these 2 eigenvalues are same, actually any vector from the plane perpendicular to this vector, the 1 1 1 vector, that also will be a eigenvector, okay, with the same eigenvalue 11 by 12 ml square. So, here in fact, I could have chosen any 2 vectors, non collinear vectors from the plane perpendicular to 1 1 1, but the choice that I have made here is 1 minus 1 0, that is in xy plane, that is this vector, and one more vector which is perpendicular to these 2. So, this is basically these are the 3 principal vectors. Now, what does this mean? This means, see, remember we were talking about rotating coordinate system, and when you rotate coordinate system, the moment of inertia changes in a particular way. Then that is exactly what the meaning of diagonalization is. So, if you have a real symmetric matrix, you can make a orthogonal transformation, which means rotate these 3 coordinate axes, keeping them mutually perpendicular in such a way that in the new coordinate system, I have only the diagonal moment of inertia tensor. So, if I instead of using this x, y and z, if I use x, y and z, the 3 green axes, then what would happen? The moment of inertia tensor will exactly come out to be diagonal, and what would be diagonal values? Diagonal values would be, so here is the, if I instead of this coordinate system, if I choose the green coordinate system and look at the green coordinate system from its own perspective, then of course, there is z axis passing through body diagonal. So, if you calculate, if you keep this system and calculate moment of inertia tensor of this configuration, it will be a diagonal matrix, and it will be a diagonal matrix with which diagonal entries? These 3 principal momenta there. Okay. So, meaning of diagonalization is this, that you can actually find 3 principal axes such that the moment of inertia tensor will be diagonal in that particular coordinate system. Okay. Fine. Now, let us use these ideas little more and calculate angular kinetic energy. So, kinetic energy, of course, in the same way that we calculated the angular momentum, the angular kinetic energy would be sum over I. Now, remember it is a summation over particles. So, it is m I v I square into half, but I remember v I is nothing but, so it is omega cross r I. Okay. So, you write that as omega cross r I. So, I will write it as 1 v I is written as omega cross r I and dot product with v I, and rearrange this. Now, I can interchange dot and cross product. So, if I interchange dot and cross product, then it will be omega dot r I cross v I, but r I cross v I is nothing but angular momentum of the ith particle, and then you have multiplied by m I and summation over I, that is basically nothing but angular momentum. So, it is half omega dot L is the angular kinetic energy, okay. And L basically can be written as I omega. So, I can write it as half omega I omega. Now, how would I interpret this? Remember, I is a 3 by 3 matrix, omega is 3 by 3 column matrix, and this dot product here basically means you take a transpose of this omega. So, it is omega transpose I omega, that is what these 2 dots mean there. If omega is along a particular axis, then if it is parallel to n cap, then I can of course substitute omega n cap there, and that would give me half n dot I dot n into omega square, and the quantity in the bracket here I will call it as I n, and that is basically the moment of inertia about the axis n. This is the quantity we have been calculating all along in our 11th and 12th standard, when the axis is given and you are supposed to calculate the moment of inertia of a rigid body about an axis. But it is actually a special case of moment of inertia tensor. Okay. So, it is somewhere derived from the moment of inertia tensor by fixing the axis. Okay. Fine. Now, to go a little further, if I take for example, some axis there, okay, n cap, and let me put 3 components to this n cap, say alpha, beta and gamma, and what would be moment of inertia about this? Now, I can actually calculate this. You write the entire expression alpha, beta, gamma as a row matrix, 3 by 3 moment of inertia matrix, and then a column matrix omega. It will expand to this. Okay. It is homework for you people. So, use this definition here, use this definition here, I n is nothing but n I n, and show that IN actually becomes something like this. Now, look, this n cap is basically a unit vector, it gives you one point in the space. But if you look at this expression here as a expression in variables alpha, beta, gamma, then you immediately see that this in fact is a equation of an ellipsoid. Okay. This is a equation of an ellipsoid. Which are the points on the ellipsoid? So, I will of course take this IN and take it to the other side, and if I divide by IN there, so it will be alpha divided by square root of IN. So, define a new vector rho such that it is n divided by square root IN, there should be n there, square root of IN, then this looks like, so all those row vectors, they all will lie on the ellipsoid, and that ellipsoid is called as inertia ellipsoid of the rigid body. Remember, this is also intrinsic to the body except where the origin of the coordinate system is. Okay. Here is one example. This is the example of, remember this cube, this is a case where the cube is kept in such a way that the origin is at one of the corners and then there are edges parallel to coordinate axis. So, it is in the first octant. In that case, the inertia ellipsoid looks like this, and you can now start recognizing various things. First of all, this axis here is 1 1 1 axis. This axis here is the these two are the remaining two principal axis of the body. So, you can immediately see that the inertia ellipsoid is arranged in the space in such a way that the axis of the ellipsoid are coincident with the principal axis of the rigid body. Secondly, the length or distance from origin to point on the surface of this inertia ellipsoid is how much? That is equal to 1 over square root I, which means if I want moment of inertia about a particular axis, you simply draw that axis, find out the point where it cuts the inertia ellipsoid, and the distance from origin to that point is basically 1 over square root IN. So, IN will be 1 over square of the distance from origin to that point. And not surprisingly, remember in the cube example, along 1 1 1 we had 1 over 6 ml square as the principal axis and the other two were 11 by 12. So, the along 1 1 1 axis, the moment of inertia or the principal momenta is the smallest. In that case, the length or the axis will be longest in 1 1 1 direction. Okay, fine. Now, here is something that we would like to do. It has also its own use in a slightly different way. So, here, so if I write this omega vector, which is instantaneous angular velocity, as omega n, then what would be my rho? Rho is nothing but n divided by square root I n. So, basically n is nothing but omega vector divided by magnitude of omega. So, I will write it as omega vector divided by magnitude of omega into square root I n, which is there. Now, let us calculate kinetic energy. So, calculate kinetic energy, this is T is omega I omega into 1 over 2, but this is nothing but I n times omega square, and so if I put that rho there, it would be rho dot L into square root of I n square divided by 2, but this one is basically square root of 2 times T, 2 times kinetic energy, and then I can take that to the other side. So, rho dot L basically just is equal to square root of 2 T. Now, look at this expression here. I am treating alpha, beta, gamma, or now of course, I will put rho x, rho y, rho z there. Remember, so the first component of rho is first component of n, which is alpha divided by square root I n. So, if you think of this surface as a function of 3 variables rho x, rho y, rho z equal to constant. Okay. This is basically in some sense constant value surfaces or isosurfaces of that function there. If I take a gradient of this rho I rho, that basically gives you normal to the surface here. Okay. Now, how much will that come to? When I take a derivative of this, that is basically you have to, I of course is independent of rho. So, you take a derivative of first and derivative of second, you get 2 times I dot rho, but that exactly is equal to 1 over square root 2 t times L. So, you can substitute rho, basically rho is omega divided by this, okay, and if you substitute that, that gives you L. What does that mean? That means angular momentum is always perpendicular to the surface of the inertia ellipsoid. Now, let us see if it makes sense. Look at what happens when I take a omega in the direction of 1 1 1. When I take omega in the direction of 1 1 1, so basically I want L, but you look at the perpendicular to the ellipsoid at the point where the major axis comes out. At that point, the perpendicular to the surface is also in 1 1 1 direction. You see, that is why your L vector was in the direction of the omega vector itself. Same thing will happen with the other two. Okay. But now, this ellipsoid is basically symmetric about 1 1 1. Okay. If you take a cross section here, the cross section is circular. That means, along the circle which joins these 4 points of the semi mature axis or middle axis, then the angular momentum will be perpendicular to the surface, but that also will be exactly same as the direction of omega. Okay. This is one. What would happen if I take, for example, the very first example where the moment of the cube was centered at origin. All 3 principal momenta were same. What would you get as a inertia ellipsoid? That would just be a sphere, and if it is a sphere, you take omega in any direction and look at the normal to the surface of the sphere, they will always be parallel. So, in the first case where we had not only the diagonal moment of inertia tensor, but all 3 eigenvalues or all 3 principal momenta were same, the inertia ellipsoid actually becomes spherical, and in that case it does not matter which way you choose omega, for every omega you have angular momentum parallel to omega. Okay. So, this was about the moment of inertia. In my next class, so basically by now we have prepared all the machinery that is required to understand the dynamics of rigid bodies. So, in the next class I am going to start with dynamical equations which actually determine the motion of the rigid bodies.